Jacob and Esau were twins, but they could not have been more different. Jacob was already fighting with his brother before they were even born. Esau was born first, covered with red hair and destined to become a strong and powerful man, a cunning hunter. Jacob was, quote, a simple man dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau and Rebekah loved Jacob, each of them for who they were. In his old age, Isaac sought to bless his son Esau with his rightful inheritance as the firstborn. But Rebekah and Jacob fooled him, and being blind, Isaac ended up blessing Jacob instead. Angry at having been denied what was rightfully his, Esau vowed to regain his property and status by killing Jacob just as soon as his father died. Therefore, Jacob ended up fleeing for his life. Many years passed, and Jacob prospered in the house of Rebekah's brother Laban. By trickery, he acquired the best sheep in the flock as his own. And when that was discovered, Jacob had to flee with his wives and children, animals and servants. He had no choice now but to go home to Canaan. This, of course, was exactly what God intended. Go back to your country and to your relatives, and I will make you prosper, so God told him. But that was something very hard for Jacob to believe. With the fate of his family and so many others at stake, Jacob prayed desperately to God, saying, I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. He realized how much had changed for him. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, he said to God, but now I have become 2 camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me. This was a crossroads of sorts for Jacob. It really wasn't just about him anymore. He was responsible for the lives of many others now as well. All of his past misdeeds had brought him to this moment, and he had good reason now to fear the future, in spite of what God had said. Esau, in fact, had heard that Jacob was coming and was already marching to meet his brother with an army of 400 men. I believe that in that moment, Jacob had come to a new and unfamiliar place of humility. Once upon a time, he had stolen his brother's birthright, and he had ended up with nothing. Since that time, he had prospered, and now he had great wealth, but he still needed to make amends. As a measure of his wealth, consider the gift that Jacob sent ahead now to Esau. 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. It really must have been quite a sight to see this sort of cattle drive with camels and sheep and goats thrown in too. His servants were sent out with their herds in 3 separate groups and told to meet Esau, and when asked where these animals had come from, they were instructed to say to Esau, they belonged to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us. Notice that even the servants were now to call Esau their lord. Like the animals, they too were a gift. Jacob hoped that this might pacify his brother. Truth is, he was giving everything he had to his brother, knowing that he should have shared everything he had long before this. What he had accumulated really belonged to all of them as a family. They would be stronger together than they were ever apart. He hoped to prove that. If nothing else, there was hope that accompanied by these gifts, at least his family and his servants would be welcomed and they would all be safe. This would not guarantee his own safety. But Jacob could use what he had to help secure their future, if not his. In the end, Jacob was left standing alone on the bank of the Jordan as night fell. He was prepared to cross over in the morning, arriving home with nothing more than the staff that he had left with. The story of Jacob and Esau was about to come to an end, one way or the other. But a new chapter was about to unfold in the story of Jacob and God. That night in the dark, by the river, Jacob was attacked, and he wrestled with the man until daybreak, sustaining a wound to his hip. "Let me go, for it is daybreak," the man said. Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked him. "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But the man replied, "Why do you ask my name?" On its surface, this is a strange little story in the middle of another bigger story. But this one is of a huge importance because it gives an entire nation its true name today. Israel translates to "he who wrestles with God." It applies to all of those who in life have chosen to wrestle with God in the hope of obtaining a blessing. The nature of that struggle encompasses all of life and all our relationships. To become overcomers in this strange wrestling match, we must somehow make peace with both God and with all the other humans in our life. Jacob himself seems to have understood that this man with whom he struggled was more than what he appeared to be. "Please tell me your name," he asked of him, to which the stranger replied, "Why do you ask my name?" very much implying what Jacob had already surmised. And as he said later, "I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Is that true? Does God ever wrestle with people in the dark? Well, of course, but not usually quite so physically. The struggle is usually much more internal than external. It grabs hold of us whenever we are struggling to figure out what is right and what is wrong. It wounds our pride when we must face up to our own failures and realize how short of the mark we have fallen. It turns us around and lays us down upon the Jordan's bank and then whispers, "Why do you ask my name?" When of course we already know the answer to that question. All these moral quandaries that keep us awake at night are really just God wrestling with us, trying to give to us a blessing. While we struggle trying to decide what we should do, God struggles to remind us to not only do what is right, but also what is loving. God seeks to remind us constantly that everyone is a child of God, and therefore we mistreat God whenever we mistreat anyone. We usually already know what the right thing to do is. We just need the courage to do it. And so we live our lives now continually wrestling with God in the process of being human in search of a blessing. Going face to face with God in this way sometimes will leave us wounded, but the blessing will come if we can hold out until the morning and if we can overcome in that way the worst in ourselves with God's help. Jacob asked for God's help, and he ended up in a wrestling match with God instead. But the help did come. And sometimes we will go through exactly the same process. Jacob and God worked things out during their long, dark night, and when the dawn came, Israel had overcome both God and man. He had wrestled with God and lived to tell the tale. But I dare say he had also been changed. He crossed the Jordan River as a different man now, with a new name, as he limped down the road to find his family waiting. And then, perhaps expecting that this might also be the last day of his life, he approached his brother, humbling, bowing down before Esau and acknowledging in that way that he had wronged him long ago. That was something that the old Jacob would never have done. And because he did that, Esau ran to embrace him. To see your face is like seeing the face of God, Israel told his brother. I think there's a hint of a message there for us, that before we can ever be at peace with those around us, we must first wrestle with God. Then once we are at peace with God, then we will be able to see God, even in the face of our enemies. This story ends by returning Jacob, Israel, to where the story began, in the land of Canaan, which is a good thing, because this story of those who wrestle with God has a long way to go yet. The lesson for us is that the blessings of peace can be ours if we can overcome the worst of ourselves. God can help us. God can show us which way we need to go in our life. It has been my experience, in fact, that God's greatest blessings only come to those who, with humility, have learned how to listen to the voice of God. In the old days, you may recall, ships used to use a Morse code signal lamp to communicate with other ships. One dark night, a captain looked out from the bridge of his ship and saw a light coming at them dead ahead. The captain told his signalmen to send this message: alter your course 10 degrees to the south. A message was quickly returned: alter your course 10 degrees to the north. The captain was angry, thinking that the captain of the other ship was being arrogant and uncooperative. So he told the signalman to send another message: I am the captain of a battleship. Alter your course 10 degrees south, now. The message came back: and I am the keeper of the lighthouse, and if you don't alter your course 10 degrees north, you're going to end up on the beach. Sometimes we have to humble ourselves and just trust the voice that speaks to us on behalf of the great I Am. That voice may just become the means of our salvation. Stay safe, and God bless you.